Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, even lawmakers are using the word chaos to describe the final moments of this year's legislative session. Lawmakers had to adjourn at midnight Wednesday with many key bills still on the table. Our State House reporter will join us in a few minutes to talk about the likelihood of a special session to work on some of the bills they didn't get to. But first, let's take a closer look at what passed this session and what didn't make it.
There was visible exhaustion and frustration as the 2018 session adjourned just after midnight Wednesday.
There's 3 or 4 bills here that really needed to be worked on tonight, but we didn't get them done. It's unfortunate, but the Republic will survive.
Lawmakers worked up until their midnight deadline. Improving the state's job training and workforce development programs was supposed to be a major issue this session and the governor's stated #1 priority. At the 11th hour, lawmakers approved a workforce development package, but it was a watered-down version of what they originally proposed. One of the bills set up a study committee on the state's workforce climate, and the other reorganizes the board that oversees those programs. It also broadens eligibility requirements for some worker training funding. House Democrats say the bill doesn't do much to help workers in the state.
We've done a whole lot of talking about that, but we've not really done anything of any substance to try to make sure that our workers are better trained and our employment opportunities are better.
Lawmakers legalized cannabidiol, or CBD, as long as it has 0.3% or less THC. The bill also imposes labeling and testing requirements on those who manufacture or sell CBD oil, which some Democrats say are too restrictive.
Why so much regulation on a product that can't get you high, has few if any side effects, and has no toxic effect if it's overconsumed?
A law passed last year allowed those with a severe form of epilepsy to use the substance. This bill goes further, following an unexpected crackdown on CBD sales and widespread confusion over whether the product was actually legal. If the governor signs the bill, anyone will be able to use CBD legally. The governor says he supports a measure lawmakers approved that will ensure DACA recipients can get professional licenses from the state. The Indiana Professional Licensing Agency began denying licenses to those immigrants late last year to comply with the 2011 state immigration law. But backed by the Holcomb administration, lawmakers took steps to remedy that unintended consequence. Republican Ed Clear says the issue came to his attention after a graduate in his community had been denied a license.
This is life-changing for DACA participants who are affected, and it's also going to be a great benefit to Hoosier employers.
And a stopgap bill that will cover an unexpected shortage in public school funding is on its way to the governor's desk. It will provide up to $25 million this year, covering the gap caused by a spike in public school enrollment. The money would be transferred from reserve funds to the state general fund and then distributed to districts. Representative Sally Segrist says the legislation will also make money available for next year in case of another major shortfall.
The things that have changed are the ceilings for tuition support. They now are $25 million for fiscal year 2017-18 and $75 million for fiscal year 2018-19.
And the one final accomplishment this session will most be remembered for is the legalization of carry-out alcohol sales on Sundays.
This is just yet another example in a long list of examples where the state of Indiana has sought to and indeed modernized our laws to meet consumer expectation. I think we've not just met it, but we've exceeded it.
For the first time in Indiana's 201+ years as a state, Hoosiers can buy alcohol at the store on Sunday.
The governor sought to extend the legislative session to give lawmakers a chance to get to more bills, but legislative leaders questioned that move's legality. Almost immediately after the session adjourned, the finger-pointing began. Democrats accused the Republicans of doing very little of substance this year, and the Republican leaders of both chambers are blaming each other. So we'll bring on Brandon. You know, it seems like lawmakers usually adjourn early, sometime by a day or more. So what happened?
Well, it's not unusual for them to go right up to their midnight deadline. That happens more often than not. But what was very, very unusual this year is that bills died because they ran out of time. Now, why that happened depends a little on who you ask. As you mentioned, Speaker Brian Bosma mostly blames it on the Senate, while Senate Leader David Long says that lawmakers just couldn't agree on all those bills quick enough to get them done.
You know, we talked about the big issues that did pass this session, including workforce development, school funding, the DACA fix, Sunday sales. Are you surprised by some of the things that didn't make it through in time for the deadline?
One of those bills that died right at the deadline, I am surprised at, the school safety bill. This was done in the wake of the Parkland, Florida school shooting. It would have provided money to schools to make upgrades, but the mechanics of that bill were a little difficult to create, and that's, I think, what led to its dying on at the last moment. Some of the other bills were controversial that died. A Muncie-Gary school takeover bill, the Democrats really hated that, while House and Senate Republicans couldn't really agree quickly enough on a bill to regulate the autonomous vehicle industry.
You know, I recall lawmakers going into this session saying there wasn't a big issue they thought they'd be debating. Is it really that unexpected that they don't have a lot of accomplishments to point to?
Well, they would argue that they have plenty of accomplishments, but no, if you listen to a lot of the rhetoric before session, it's not surprising that there wasn't maybe a signature issue of this session other than, of course, Sunday alcohol sales.
And Brandon, early in the session, we saw a hate crimes bill and a township bill fail. What happens next for these issues? Do you think they'll come up again next session?
Yeah, supporters of both of those issues say they're going to bring them back next year, but I don't know that I would put a lot of money on either one of them succeeding. Certainly, if you had to pick one that had a better chance, it's probably the township reform measure.
And what would have to happen for lawmakers to call a special session? Is that really a possibility here?
It's definitely a possibility, as Senator Long and Governor Holcomb left open that possibility, but it's really simple. The governor simply calls for a special session, and lawmakers have to file all their bills over again. They go through the whole process, but if there's a lot of agreement worked out ahead of time, it could theoretically only just be one day of session.